Hello my friends, thank you for joining Mathis Digital. Do you know that we can produce Json from T24? Yes, it is possible. I'm going to show you how to do that in a very simple way. You'll be amazed. It is such simple that anyone can do that. So stick with me and we're going to see how you can process a list, a saved list, and produce JSON, valid JSON data out of T24. So we're going to continue our topic on saved list. By this time, we're going to use a TAFC environment to process the list which we managed to produce last time. So this is where we left it last time. Last time, we managed to produce this list. So if you haven't watched our previous video, please watch it. So we used JQL in TAFC to produce this list. So JQL is for selecting data, and we use the command SAVEDLISTS and or list to combine a list from different companies and produce this as one. So this is a combined list. It's a list of 20 accounts from different companies. So we have EU1, we have BNK, and we have SG1. In total, 20 accounts. Now, our task of today is to process this list and get some customer information, but in a JSON format. So if you don't know what JSON is, I ask you to check on the internet. It's very simple to understand. It's based on key value pairs. So we're going to produce an array of JSON with the details of these accounts. Because now what we have is just account numbers and company codes, but we want details, account details. Let's get started. So there are different ways you can use to process this list. So at the end, this is just a file on T24 server, but in a special folder called SAVEDLISTS. Now, at least I know three. You can just treat this as a sequential file, and you read the content from this file using OpenSec, readsec, and so on. The second way, you can use call OPF. So you open this. Normal way you open any T24 file, like account or customer. Then use fread to read the data. But there's another way, and I think it's the best way if you know InfoBasic. So it is a way to read this file in an optimized way and process it. Let's see. Now, the first thing you need to do, you don't want to hardcode the name of the list to be processed, okay? So you can prompt the user to provide the name of the list. So you can do prompt, say, enter the name of the list. Or you can say, please enter the name of the list. Then you can save this in another variable. Let's name this list name. Now, do you always trust that the user is going to provide the list? Well, we need to check, okay? You trust the user, but you check. So you can check if they have entered the list before you proceed. So how do you do that? Of course, we use if statement. So we can do if not list name. What do we do? Let's just stop our program. There's no need to continue. You didn't want to provide the list, so let's ignore this. Now, the second case which may happen, a user may provide a list which does not exist. What do you do with that? But before we arrive there, so let me tell you that we're going to use the best practice. And the best practice to process a list is to use the inbuilt functions, info basic functions. So there is one which is called read list. Now here, read what it does. You see, read list allows the program to retrieve previously stored list created with SAVEDLISTS command. You see? So we have created our list using SAVEDLISTS. And this command will allow us to retrieve our list. Okay? So the way it used, you see in the documentation, you can even copy this statement. I can do this. I can copy, by the way, and paste. So let's name our variable where we're going to store the list. A variable called account list. Okay? For instance, from what? You're getting from this variable. Okay? So expression. Now, when everything's okay, we have this then. Let's treat first the exception. What if the list provided by the user is not valid? What do we do in that case? So I suggest that we inform the user that the list I have provided is not valid. And then we stop our program because there's no need of continuing with the list. But to do that, if the list does not exist, so we need to end and say, we can print a message on the screen saying, hey, the list with this name, let's say with this name, call this one, the one you are saying you have provided, you want to process, does not exist. Does not exist or could not be found. And then we stop our program. There's no need of continuing. It's one way. Now, we arrive here. We are sure that the user has provided the list, and this list exists on T24. What do? Yes, we have already the variable which has the data which we have read. Okay, so this is going to read this list into this variable. We have this variable. We can use it. This is a list. Okay. Now, how do we process the list? Of course, we need to loop through that list and pick each element at a time and do something with it. In this case, we're going to get data from T24. Now, there are two possibilities. We can use for loop or loop repeat. So let me take the second route. I do loop repeat. Of course, we can use for loop, whichever if you're comfortable with. Now, if we have a record in this list, so for that we can use another statement, amazing statement, read next. Let's read what it does. Let's say, read next retrieves the next element in a list variable. This sounds ideal, like what we have. And by the way, we can also copy the statement. It happened today, I'm copying a lot. So you see, you can get the first variable, second variable from variable 3 and so on. So what you want to get is the whole record, okay? The whole line, name it line or record, how you want, from which? From this variable, okay? Which has our list. Then, once we get it, what do? We can use do. Basically, this we say, get the record from this list, meaning get this line into a variable called record from this list, and then do something with it, which we are going to put it here. Okay, what do you want to do? Let's, for now, print this record and see how it looks like. At least this is going to give us an idea on what to do next. So let me log into T24. I go back. So do jedmathc.pp. I'm going to create this on T24. I grab my source codes. F5, I can do F5 PCR. This is going to save, compile, catalog, and run. Okay. Now the name of our list, if we put enter, nothing happens, right? This is expected. But when they put a valid list, in our case, which is acct.list, look at that. You see, exactly, we are pulling all the information and printing. So, because we are just printing, exactly the same information from this list is displayed here on the screen. Great. So we are progressing very well. Now, what we want is not to print again the list we have. Otherwise, it's useless. So what we need to do is to extract this account number, which happens to be here, and do something with it. So if you look at the structure of our file, we have 9 characters represent the company code, and we have the rest from 11. We have our account number. So, but our account number varies. So the number of digits varies. But we are sure that the first 9 characters represent the company code. Okay. So we can do something with this. Now, when working in multi-company environment, 2 things may happen depending on how your environment is configured. Let me show you. This account belongs to EU1. So if I try to view this being in BNK, it does not accept. Okay. So which means I need to switch to the proper company. Okay, the proper company, I can see that account. Now, in a subroutine, depending on how your system works, how it is configured, you might need to switch to this company for the account or not. In my environment, it's configured in such a way that if I read account, it's going to read anyway. But if it happens that you can't read accounts, then you need to switch to the proper company. You do that, you can check. You can do, first of all, let's get the company code. Okay. So we can say company code or company ID. We get it from this rec, and we pick from 1 up to 9. So we are sure from 1 to 9 it's a company code because it is a fixed length. We know that. Company code is 9 characters. Now, how do we get account number? Account number, we get it from the same variable, but we pick it from 11 because 10 is a comma. Okay, 10 is a comma. And the rest, we can say up to 999 because we don't know the length. This is going to be stored in account ID. So we have our 2 variables. So now, as I have told you, if your environment, if there's some restriction, you cannot process accounts of another company, being in BNK, whatever, whichever company you logged in, then what you can do, you can check, you can do like if, let's say this company code is not equal to, let's say, id.company, then you can call a subroutine called load.company, okay? Load.company, and you give it your company code. Okay, this will switch to that company. This will load the current company. So the company of this account we are processing. In the first case, it's going to be EU1. Now they process all the accounts of EU1. Once they reach to GB, to this account, they will see that account. This is not EU1. Then the system is going to switch to GB 01001. Okay, and so on. But as I've told you, my environment is configured in such a way that I don't need this really. Okay. So now things are getting easier. Now, how do we get data from T24? Of course, we need to read data from T24. This is just account number. Now, we need to get that account number from T24. Okay? So, what do? I've prepared a very simple routine here. This routine actually is the one which is going to produce the JSON. So, let's have a look at it. Subroutine is very simple. I promised you that it's going to be easier than you thought. So producing a JSON is very easy from T24. At the end of the day, a JSON is just a string, okay? It's nothing like that. It's a string. So if you can form a string in a valid JSON string from a dynamic array, then you're ready to go. You don't need any libraries or any fancy programs to do that. So here, look at declaring this as an object. So in JSON, we have this represents an object. Then I have this routine which just fetches the data from a particular file in T24. In this case, from account, I'm reading account number. So our routine is called get account details. It accepts account ID and returns the details. And details happens to be a JSON string. So the first element of this JSON string is going to be account ID. So I'm saying ID, colon, then account ID. Then I just concatenate this in normal way because this is a string with a comma. I put the second field as the name. I can name it how I want, or title, whatever, or account title. Then I'm concatenating this with account short title. Then I put currency. Then I add the balance and I close. At the end, this is going to return a JSON string. Pretty simple, very easy. Okay. Now let's test this. We're going to call this subroutine in our program. So we do call our subroutine. So it accepts account ID and returns the details. All right. Now we can print our details. Okay, so let's compile again our subroutine. FIBCR acct.list. All right, you see we have different JSON objects. Now we're getting data from T24 as JSON objects, as you can see. We can copy one of these, by the way, to test if it's a valid JSON. Let me try to create this file. Language, I select JSON. Let me format. You see, this is a valid JSON, okay? Produced from T24. Now, the optimum way would be to produce this as just one JSON array of data. Okay? So let's do that. Now, what I want to do is to have one variable. Let's, for instance, name this account list. And since this is going to be an array in JSON starts with this. So this is how we start an array, and we can concatenate this each object which we are getting here. They're concatenated with the comma. Okay, so we should have this object, comma, object, comma. So to do that, I can use my array. Treat this as a dynamic array, and I concatenate it with details. Then at the end, I add comma. I need to add a comma. Now, after having this, what I need to do, I can substitute the last comma, because at the end we're going to have at the end of this we're going to have a comma as well, but I can substitute this comma with the closing bracket like this. Okay, so this is going to format properly our JSON array, because we are opening an array. We are concatenating data with comma, because each object is separated by comma. Then at the end, we add this. Now we can print this. So let's see. CRT, count list. So I select FT. Let me save. So we can compile. Fi PC. It's compiled and cataloged. Now let's run a program and see the output. Account list. All right, congratulations, my friends. So this is a valid JSON array. So let's see. We can copy this and let's get rid of this. Let's format. All right, as you can see, so we have managed to produce a JSON array of data from T24. It is amazing. So today we have learned very important concepts. So you have seen how you can process a saved list in an easy way using just inbuilt functions, inbuilt statements, JBC statements. Read list is a very important concept. Read next, how to get the next variable from the list, and how to produce JSON. It's amazing. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. You now know how to work with saved list in a tough environment, and how you can produce JSON data from T24. Congratulations. So please consider subscribing if you haven't. Share and like our video. See you next. Bye bye.